This episode is sponsored by M5 and Associates, motivated, financially independent, victorious entrepreneurs. Hey, look, guys, my family and I are on a mission to help 500 families by the end of the year to get on track financially. How are we doing this? We're focused on the 5 areas that we struggle with the most. These are also 5 areas that I find that most people are struggling with today. Number one is budgeting. Budgeting is simply having a plan for your money. And if I'm honest, we would get paid, we would have absolutely no plan, and guess what? Just as soon as we got paid, we would be broke again. Number two is helping families eliminate your bad debt. It is so easy to get into debt, it is super hard to get out of it. And oftentimes it does require some assistance. The third thing that we're focused on helping families with is your credit. Hey guys, look, I once heard someone say that it is easier to accumulate $100,000 in credit than it is to save $100,000, right? Which was a game changer. Number four is investments. I know that everybody wants to be financially independent. Oftentimes we just have no idea what it takes to really get there. And number five is life insurance. And look, though this is number five, by no means is it the least important. In our communities, we're either uninsured or we're underinsured. And oftentimes, for the people that are insured, we just really don't understand how it works. Allow my family and our team to help you and your family get on track financially. Hey guys, look, thank you so much again for tuning in. Let's get right to the video.
What's up, you guys? It's your girl Felicia McTiller, Mrs. M5. I have the esteemed pleasure today to interview my boo, right? So, if this is your first time joining us, this is the M5 Family Hustle. I am Felicia, aka Mrs. M5. This is my amazing husband.
Mr. M5, Mr. Motivated, financially independent, victorious entrepreneur.
Yes, I just needed him to give y'all that part right there because like I like how it flows, make me feel good.
Make you
You know what I'm
feel
saying?
good.
Yeah, it make you
Okay.
like wanna, move your shoulders and bop a little bit.
It's a movement.
Right? It is a movement. So you guys, I am going to be interviewing this guy right here. I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit about him, right? I'm gonna give you a little bit of his stats, and then we're really gonna go deep into who Mr. M5 is. But this is my husband of almost 16 years now,
Hmm.
right? A fantastic father. He is a mentor. He is an entrepreneur. He is a aspiring philanthropist. He is a loving son, right? Very devoted. He is an amazing speaker, right?
Wow.
Motivational speaker. He just has the power to touch anyone that he passes by. I don't think that anything is intentional. I mean, I don't think that anything is by circumstance, right? By
Mm.
happenstance. I don't think that things just happen. I think that God has been very direct with placing certain people in our lives and definitely placing you in certain people's lives. I do believe, sweetheart, that there is a great calling on your life. He is a visionary, you guys. So we are going to pick his brain for a little bit, just kind of get underneath, right? Because he look all tough and stuff like that.
I am a little
But
tough, right?
yes, he is. But when you get to know him, like if you really know him, he is the most genuine, caring, loving, concerned person that I've ever met, um, with a passion to communicate. Okay. He's also an amazing problem solver. I don't think I said that earlier, right? Just so many layers. And I'm so thankful to be your wife, sweetheart. I'm thankful to be your helpmate. Okay.
Well, let me thank you for being my wife and for being an amazing helpmate and an amazing partner.
Thank you. So, Let's get into it,
Let's get
right?
into it, man. Let's get it popping.
So, for the people that don't know, right, where are you from? Who would you say Tremaine McTiller is?
So the first part is really easy, right?
Is it really?
I'm a Mississippi native.
Okay.
Now, and we
I
always kind of
told
go back
y'all.
and forth, but originally I'm from Mississippi. But I moved to Miami when I was 19. I lived there for, you know, most of my adult life.
What part of Mississippi are you from?
It's like the Jackson metro area, but
Okay.
my family was from the Delta. So, like, of course, during the summers, I would spend a lot of my time up in the Hollandale, Greenville,
Okay.
Mississippi area, right? So,
Yep.
I guess that makes me a good old Southern boy, right?
Really?
I guess it would
Yes.
make me a Southern
I
boy,
guess
right?
so. You got them
But
southern roots. Definitely.
strong Southern roots,
Definitely. Not the
absolutely.
accent. I don't know how I got the accent
And
and he got the roots, but anyway.
maybe not the accent. So when I was 19, I moved to Miami. So you'll hear me say sometimes that I feel like I grew up in Miami. And what I mean when I say I grew up in Miami, like I became an adult
Got you.
in Miami, right? At 19 years old, I mean, you're young and dumb, still navigating and trying to figure out life, you
Okay,
know.
before we get to 19, right? Let's talk about the kid growing up
hmm
in Jackson, Mississippi, right? How was your childhood there in Jackson? Where did you go to high school? People love repping their high school, so
In Mississippi,
in
people love
Mississippi.
repping
So,
their high
how was
school.
your childhood growing up there in Jackson, Mississippi? I mean, I think that when a lot of people think about Jackson, Mississippi, even today they think about like dirt roads and, what I'm saying, like country streets and, you got to
But
go to town to get stuff. Was it like that growing up for you?
I get people, and it's crazy because people actually ask me that in real life, like, are the roads paved in Mississippi that have never been before? And yes, okay, the area that I grew up in, the roads are paved. Now, even out in the Delta, right, in your cities out there, like in Greenville, Hollandale, the roads are paved.
Mhm.
However,
Mhm.
my grandma lived in a little town called Murphy,
Okay.
which I would say is maybe 20 minutes outside of the little city, okay?
Okay.
And in Murphy, the roads were not paved, all
So
right?
y'all did grow up on some dirt roads.
Well, I didn't grow up on dirt roads.
Okay.
Now, whenever we were, at my
Visiting.
grandma's house, then yes, I mean, when you're driving down the street, you see the smoke, the dirt cloud behind you, right? You can see
Yes.
someone's coming from like
Miles away
miles
because
away
you see the
because
dirt
you
cloud.
just see the cloud just following, right, the
Got you.
car. But in the city, the roads are definitely paved. But how was life growing up in Mississippi? Right. So for my people that are from Mississippi, okay, I proudly represent that green and gold. Okay, Jim Hill, green and gold. Right. If you know, you know. But life in Mississippi, I would say, was I had I had two different experiences. I almost feel like I lived almost kind of two different lives at a
Really?
time, kind of at the same time. Because there was a lot of stuff that I dealt with at home. My mom was married to a
Hmm.
guy for, I think they were married for like maybe 13 years. So again, most of my young childhood, right, she was married.
Hmm.
And it wasn't really the greatest marriage at all.
Okay.
My mom and her husband argued and fought all the time. Now, not necessarily like physically,
Just
just
arguing, just
arguing.
emotional. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
really like a lot of emotional, trauma for me. And I feel like I'm an emotional person. So to grow up in that type of environment
Right.
um, really was difficult for me. Like I used to lash out oftentimes at home, tearing stuff up.
You
You
used to
know,
tear stuff up, eh?
I have torn some
Like
stuff up
put holes in the
before.
walls and stuff?
I have I have done that.
Ooh.
Now I didn't do it intentionally.
Just
It was
kind of
just
out
kind of
of
like at
frustration and
at the
anger.
moment, how you just feel like you need to just kind of hit some and not really even understanding the force that
Do
hitting
you
the
remember
wall
about
with.
how old you were around that time?
I could have been anywhere from, I'll say maybe 10 to 13
Okay.
years old, maybe even younger. So the youngest I can remember, like my mom being married, was like maybe when I was in third grade, and I know she got married before I was in the third grade, but
Got you.
I can definitely remember all of us living together, going to school and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
so that was one aspect, which was tough,
Tough.
which was a lot to deal with. I mean, I used to cry a lot as a kid
Mm-hmm.
in the privacy of my own space. So I wasn't, at school or out in the streets crying or
So
nothing
you
like
weren't no
that. But
crybaby, crybaby. You were just emotional because of things that were going
things that
on
were
at
going on,
home.
right?
Got you.
That was really tough. Now, on the outside of home, like at school and at church, I
Mm-hmm.
was, I feel like a different person, and I don't know if I felt like I necessarily had to be, if that was kind of my way of coping with the things I was dealing with at
At
home.
home.
But I was a very um, joking type of person.
I can
Like
see
I was
that.
kind of the class, not kind of, I was the class clown
I can see
in
that.
school, and like just kind of reflecting on it and thinking about it right now, I think a lot of that was my way of dealing with
What was going on at
the
home?
issues at home.
Yeah.
Now there were a few times I can remember being at school where, I felt like someone provoked me and I responded out of, anger, and not even necessarily just in regards to what was going on at the moment. I think just, a lot of issue.
Everything overall,
Yes,
yeah.
right.
Like just
So,
kind of built up stuff, not dealing with it. I can imagine as a
yeah.
child, not really having an outlet. Especially if you're watching something that you just kind of feel like you don't have any control over.
Hmm.
So you kind of lash out and control, I guess, situation that you can. And a lot of time it doesn't come out in the right way.
Man, look, this person was about to get a beat down that they didn't have nothing to do with.
Wow.
Now, and don't get me wrong, what they did deserve a beat down. But what I'm saying is that
The
they was
force
about
and
to
the
feel,
energy
you
was not
know,
even what they brought.
yeah,
Got
years
you.
years of frustration, right? For just doing a single dumb thing.
All right, so that was one part of your childhood because you say it was kind of like two parts.
Two parts. So the other part was just, kind of outside of my house. It's kind of, happy go lucky a little bit. Just
Do you
happy to
think you
be.
were like happy go lucky outside to kind of cover up, how you felt or things that you were dealing with inside?
For sure, because I don't think that a lot of my friends even understood or knew like
What was
what I
going
was
on?
dealing with at home.
Got you.
So outside my house, like I was cool, and honestly, like I probably would have been really cool at home if it wasn't for all of that stuff
I
going
got
on.
you.
Yeah, so two parts. I mean, I spent. I kind of grew up in church, right? So at some
Mhm.
point when I was young, my mom decided to take us to church, and in the beginning, I was not open to it at all. Like I can remember, so look, I didn't spend most of my childhood hearing my mom, curse. I mean, we listening
I
to,
could not imagine your
the
mama cursing.
blues and
I've known her for 16 years and I can't
man,
imagine
like
her cursing.
my mom used to get down, boy, with some curse words, man. No, she used to get down, and one day she decided that we were going to go to church, and it was crazy because it's like overnight
Everything just changed.
she changed.
Wow.
She stopped cursing overnight. She stopped listening to the blues. Everywhere we went, we were listening to the AM station, and you know how the AM station back then, like it was like choppy and stuff like this. You could barely even
Shh,
hear.
shh, shh,
I'm like, man,
shh.
like, is we really listening to this? So my first couple of times ever going to church, man, like I really, so you know how they say come as you are.
Yes.
So I really went as I was, and I
Uh,
don't even know.
about how old were you around that time when you guys started going to church?
I probably, you know, maybe seventh grade,
Okay, so at this
eighth
time,
grade.
your mom was still married.
My mom was still married
So we still kind of had the stuff going on
at home
at
for sure.
home. But mom is trying to turn over a new leaf. So she packs you guys up and take you to church.
She turned over a new leaf. There was no trying to it. Like she
She
definitely
just,
did it. She
like, oh,
did
you
it.
said overnight. She just
I
flipped the
promise. To
switch.
me, it felt like it was overnight.
Okay.
And it took us. It took me. Let me say, I don't know about my sister, but it took me a little minute to really process
Adjust.
that. Yeah. So I would go to church, man, and I was kind of a hippie back in the day. Like I had a big
I
fro.
cannot even imagine, y'all. I gotta see the pictures.
I would have the now there are some pictures out there now. I would have the pick with the fist on it.
Hold on, time out. If y'all went to school, if you went to Jim Hill with Tremaine and y'all have pictures of him, I'm gonna need y'all to drop them pictures in high school because I need to see this.
There may be a few people. I wasn't one of the most popular kids in school,
Well, you had a
but
few friends and they probably got some pictures. All I need is a few.
I wore the wide-legged pants, right? We used to call them jinkos. I wore those. Just really just. So anyway, I would go to church like that.
You ain't put on your Sunday best to go to
I
church?
no no no. I don't know for sure. I didn't have Sunday's best.
Your mom didn't like make y'all, she just was like, go as you are?
I think that she really let us go as we were. So the other thing I would do, I would go to church wearing the headphones, right? So they've come back, right? But the
The
over
big
the ear
headphones,
headphones,
yeah.
and I would sit in the back of the church, like maybe the last pew or something, and I'm listening to Tupac,
All the stuff that your
Biggie,
mom would just have
Bone
a
Thugs and
fit.
Harmony. Like I have no idea. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget being in a youth service. I'll never forget being in youth service, and Mr. Murphy, rest his soul, was you know giving a message, and I'm sitting to his left, maybe 2 rows back, and it could have been, I don't know, maybe it could have been maybe 50 kids in there, and
It's a lot of kids in
it,
church.
it
It
was,
was in a youth service.
yep,
Okay.
yep, it was in a youth service, and I can't even tell you what he's talking about, man. I just know I'm over there just bobbing my head, man. Just
The disrespect.
and honestly, I didn't even view it as being disrespectful. How I looked at it was my mom asked us, is
This what
making
she
us
wanted to
is
do.
making us come here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm here. I got my music on, so I'm not disrupting anything. I'm just
I'm
I'm
here.
I'm here.
I'm here. My mom wanted
I'm
me here. I'm
vibing.
here.
I'm not. So in my mind, like I'm one being disrespectful. So
So you had that. Hold on. You had on headphones. That mean you had like a tape player or you had a
I had a
CD
CD
player.
player. I had a CD player, and with all my CDs in it. So I'm vibing, and I look over at Mr. Murphy. I just kind of look up, and he locked eyes with me. And I guess my music was so loud,
That other
you
people
can
can hear.
hear the words. So I'm vibing. I look up. He's looking at me. He starts, bopping his head and starts kind of like, you know, kind of rapping with me a little bit.
The
And
lyrics to the song you was listening to.
now, and he could have just been moving his lips, but it looked to me, because again, I
Got
got the
you.
music on. It looks to me that he's like, rapping along with me.
Right.
And that kind of made me like,
What kind of church
oh,
is this?
let me. So I took off my headphones, and I never remember putting them on again at church.
Wow.
And he didn't call me out. It wasn't like you know, hey kid, you're being disrespectful. You need to stop that. He didn't throw no scriptures at me or nothing like that. It wasn't like let us stop and pray.
So basically, what I hear you saying is that at that moment, Mr. Murphy being receptive and meeting you where you were made an impact in your life.
It did
Wow.
forever. It made an
That's a
impact.
nugget.
Like I took the headphones off, and now I'm listening to.
Because a lot of kids don't like church because it's so churchy. I think that sometimes the youth leaders forget that they were once youth. And I think that that's a very important piece. For a lot of kids like you, like going to church is something brand new. Like maybe their parents went to church when they were like young, especially now, like coming out of the pandemic, like people haven't been in church in like forever. So
True.
you could have young kids that are now, and I hate to say it like this, but they're being forced to go to church with their parents, and they're sitting in this youth service and they don't know anybody, and this is totally new for them. And then you have the youth leaders like condemning them instead of meeting them where they are. And I mean, I know how much of an impact Mr. Murphy has had, in your life from that experience, but just kind of expound on that some.
Well, one of the things that I feel like he did very well that you just mentioned was just kind of meeting everybody where they were. There was no pressure to conform or to be, like there wasn't a Christian standard type of, what I'm saying, deal. It was like,
Got you.
you're right here. Okay, I got you. I see you. And I'm going to nurture you to being
I got
where
you.
I need you to be.
Or where you need to be.
And yep,
Yep.
yep. And it was it almost seemed like it was seamless a little bit. Like I don't feel like I missed anything. As a matter of fact, I grew so much
Got you.
being there in a youth ministry at New Horizon.
Shout
Definitely
out to New
shout
Horizon.
out, definitely shout
Right.
out.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. May you rest in peace for nurturing this handsome guy right
But
here because
because
I
remember,
need him.
like I was dealing with so much at home, and music was kind of my
That
therapy.
was your outlet.
Yep. So
Right.
like even at home, like when my parents were arguing and fighting, like I would go to my room and I would just kind of immerse myself in music. So
Music.
I would kind of I guess channel my pain through the
The
music that I was
music.
listening to. So it always went with me, right? No matter where I went, right?
That was your
So
connection. That was
yep.
your kind of like your peace, your calm.
And if I'm honest, like I didn't know God at the time,
Right.
before being at church. So Mr. Murphy introduced me.
Wow.
Mr. Murphy
That's
introduced me to
deep.
God, right?
That's
He
deep.
helped he introduced me and he helped develop that relationship. So it got to a point where I didn't need the music no more.
Right. Because you had a relationship with a higher source, a higher
I
power.
definitely had a relationship with a higher source, but I also had a relationship with someone that was
The
in the flesh I could
connection.
put my hand on.
Yep.
This is the person that introduced me,
He was the
and
plug.
he was the plug. I like that, right?
Mm, was the
Mr.
plug.
Murphy was the plug, and the environment, right, was really conducive and allowed me to become. So that's why I said there was
It
two
nurtured
parts.
you. The
For
environment
sure.
definitely nurtured
Man,
you.
I went from, listening to, Pac doing youth service to being a youth leader,
Wow.
right? I never forget, there was a mission trip that the church was going on, that the youth ministry in particular was going on, and they had selected a few leaders. I was relatively new there. I didn't even expect at all to make this trip whatsoever. Didn't even think twice about it. They're going to Grand Rapids, Michigan to do something, cool, man. Like, I catch them when they come back type of
Right.
deal.
I'm going to hold it down here at the church till they come back.
And I guess one of the other leaders that were going to go, couldn't make it, had something come up. And Mr. Murphy, asked me to go. And I can remember getting in the car telling my mom, like, this guy asked me to go on this mission trip. Like, I don't even I don't even know what a mission trip is.
Right.
Like, what we doing?
What's the mission?
What's the mission? Like for real, like my whole idea of going on this trip was like a vacation. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go though because I ain't never been,
To
nowhere,
Michigan before,
really
right?
before. So I'm gonna go. But yo, like I got my music with me. I got my clothes. There was a few girls that was going too that I thought was cute. So I'm
There's
like, hey,
always some girls involved.
hey, I'm there. Man, that trip was life changing though.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
life changing.
Tell me like two things that was so life changing about this trip.
Well, one, it's a mission trip, so like we went somewhere to serve, right?
Got you.
To give back, to be an example of what Christ is, right? So that was in itself life changing because I mean, I had never done anything
So here you
even
are,
remotely similar to mission work.
brand new into faith, right? Kind of just being introduced to these people, kind of just making a connection with
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Murphy, and then all of a sudden you're on a mission trip. So you kind of like one foot in, one foot out, because you said you still had your music, right? It was some cute girls
That old secular
that you know what I'm
music,
saying,
boy, the
like it was some
girls.
cute girls out there. He trying to see. He done took the secular music with him on the trip, but it was life changing because you went to serve others. You found out what the mission trip was. You went and served others on that trip.
Absolutely. And it allowed me to kind of see how people were really living, right? How
Outside
tough.
of what
My
you
little
would normally
bubble.
know,
Yep,
right?
absolutely. So one really defining moment that caused me to question the music and the influence that music may have had over me. I was outside, with the group in a playground, and like some kids got to fighting. Now these were not kids, with
Not with
us at all.
y'all,
Like they
okay.
were just hanging out at the park, and two kids get to fighting, and I just hear, you know, hey, kill him, kick his so and so, and take his head off,
Kind of like all the music that you was listening to at the
like,
time. Oh.
and it almost like time just froze for me a little bit, and I'm just, looking at them. I'm thinking, I'm hearing everything that they're saying, and it's like I'm trying to figure out like how little kids can be so
Aggressive
angry
and
and
yeah,
aggressive
yeah,
and really wanting to hurt,
right.
and driving by, with somebody with some loud, music, and you know I'm listening to the music now, and the music sounded just like these
Those
kids
kids
sounded.
talking, yeah,
And so I'm going to break up the fight, and a couple of my leaders that were with me was like, hey, Tremaine, like, you should probably stay out of that. But I'm like, we're here to
we're
serve.
here to serve,
You know what I
right,
mean? And not that I just fully understand what serving is, but I felt like if I'm witnessing something happen in front of me that shouldn't be taking place,
right,
it is my duty
to kind of
to
step in,
intervene and
right.
to stop it. So without any fear, man, like I go, we stop, we break up the fight, and then I begin to kind of minister to
The
these
kids,
kids. Now,
look at
not
God,
now. Wait a minute. Now,
look at God,
not like the typical,
right. Just kind
with the
of
scriptures
telling
and
them why they shouldn't be doing that.
yes, just
Yeah,
talking to them, and just helping them figure out and see through this issue that they were
right.
having and why it was not okay for them to be fighting each other and wanting to take each other heads off. And when I went back to where we were sleeping at, um, after hearing the music, I was like, you know what, you know, this music that I'm listening to
And it's no good.
is really,
It's no
it's
good
really
for
no
your
good.
soul, kids.
And I also realized at that moment too how powerful the influence of music and entertainment and the media is. Right? So I tore up, I broke every CD that I had except for one.
Which was
A song by, I think it was by the Locks, in a tribute song to Big. We'll
gotcha.
always love
Big
Big
Papa.
Papa.
Yeah, I remember that
We'll
song.
always love Big Papa. Hey man, that was because nothing in that song was, violent. I mean,
Harmful,
it was,
yeah. Yeah.
it was a tribute, I'm saying, to the late
Big.
Big.
So the second part of your childhood is essentially when you were introduced to Christ.
The second part was healing.
Wow, that's big. The first
Yeah.
part was kind of the trauma. The second part was the healing.
But I will say this too, though. If I had to do it all over again, I would not omit the trauma.
Absolutely, you cannot.
You know what I'm saying?
Because
Like,
then you don't appreciate the healing and the growth if you haven't gone through anything.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And those experiences, I really felt like kind of separated me from my peers a little bit. Because I was at home, I was dealing with real stuff.
Right.
So it just, I feel like I feel like it kind of gave me an advantage, in terms of, maturity and just how I kind of, looked at things. definitely how I handled the women that I dated, etc. Because I watched my mom go through so
Right.
much, dealing with a guy, and I never wanted to be that guy.
All right. So that was growing up in Mississippi,
Hmm.
right? So you went to Jim Hill High School. You graduated from there in 2000, right? Shout out to Jim Hill
Class of
Tigers, class
2000,
of
baby.
2000. And then how did you get to Miami from Mississippi?
Yeah, that was really interesting, but quick story.
It's
So,
never quick. If
no, I
y'all know
mean,
Tremaine, y'all know it's never quick. So
this right here
tell
is a
your
quick story
story.
because we don't have all day, right? But I um I was in school. I was at Jackson State,
Okay.
right, studying psychology,
Okay.
and we're out on summer break.
So you want to be a
I
psychologist.
wanted to be a psychologist.
Got you. Makes
So
sense.
so all of my friends are going somewhere, doing an internship, or maybe they've taken a vacation or something like that with their friends. I mean, with their families, and I'm home just doing nothing. Just
Mm-hmm.
going to work. So I used to work at Comp USA, and I go to work one day, and it's crazy because I stopped by Sonic's, right, to pick me up something to eat on my way to work, and I lost my wallet, right? Like, so I had the wallet to pay for the food,
Right.
but somehow between paying for my food
And getting to work.
and getting to work,
No wallet.
no wallet.
Wow.
And I had a car accident on my way to work,
Well,
right?
wow.
So I had a car accident. I
Lost your wallet, had a car
lost my
accident.
wallet, hit a lady um, on my way to work. Now, it was no like really significant damage, but
Your wallet. You ain't had no driver
I didn't have my
license.
wallet. So because there was no significant damage though, like, there was no police call or nothing like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go to work, and, remember, like, I'm always kind of in a playful, jokeful mood or
Yes.
whatever. So
You're still the jokester.
me and the guys at work used to like prank each other, all the time. So I'm working at Company USA. I'm selling computers, and I don't know if y'all remember the HP computers and how they used to have the little wizard that would come out and kind of give you a tour of the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured out how to change the wizard's script. Like, you can
Mm-hmm.
actually change
Whatever it said.
what the wizard was saying. So one of my coworkers is showing a person a computer, and this was the same computer I had been on
Mess with the wizard.
messing with the wizard. And and it's so funny because
Now it's funny.
I programmed the wizard to say something to this particular salesman, not knowing that he was going to be
Showing a computer to
showing the
somebody
computer to
when the
somebody.
wizard said it.
So as he's showing his computer and the features, the wizard comes out. He's giving this guy the business, right?
Oh my
This
God.
craziness, and as the wizard is giving my guy the business, the manager is walking by. The store manager is walking by, and he hears this wizard, and he just like, he's furious, and he's like, "Who's responsible for this right now? Like, who did this?" And I've never been the type of person to not own up to my
You
mistakes
took
and accept my
accountability.
responsibility. So, hey, and I wasn't about to let my colleagues go down for something that I did. So I was like, hey,
You took accountability.
immediately I'm like, it was me, right? And the manager was like, you don't work here no more. Get your stuff. Like,
Fired.
fired me right on the spot.
Lost your wallet.
Car
Car
accident,
accident.
fired
Fired.
from my job. So
Wow. What
now,
a day.
now
It's
what I
all in
did
one day.
say, no, this is all in one day, probably within a, you know,
Couple hour time
like an
frame.
hour or so window, right? Because I was getting something to eat on my way to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a car note. So my mom let me buy a car my senior year in high school. So I had a car note, brand new car, that I had to pay for.
How much was your car note?
My car note, I think, was like $358 or something like
Woo,
that.
them was the days.
Yeah.
If only we can get a brand new car today for
But
$350.
but what I never thought about, because at that time it was required that you have insurance, but it was not required that you had it in order to drive off the lot. You
Got
just
you.
had to get it within a certain time frame.
Got you.
So I was only thinking about the car note. Like I can afford
Not the
$358,
insurance.
not
Right.
the insurance. The insurance was $300 itself. So now I'm paying $658 a
For a
month.
car. What kind of car you had?
Boy, it was a Grand Dam, a black Grand Dam, peanut butter interior, sunroof, man. The 2000 model with the quad exhaust. Man, it was a beautiful car. Then, you know what I'm saying? Like it was. As a matter of
But
fact, like if
six
I could
hundred
get one of
dollars a
them cars a
month.
day, yeah, $658 a month. My friends are all doing something. I just got fired, lost my wallet, had a car accident, right? So I decided that I was gonna go to Miami. Cause I
Why'd
said
you
that.
pick Miami? Like out of all the
Well,
places in the world, why Miami?
well, I have family in Miami that I didn't know that I
Hmm.
always kind of wanted to know.
Okay.
So I felt like I can go to Miami, kind of kick it with them a little bit, get to know them. The
Hmm.
intention was just to go down there for 2 months,
Hmm.
because again I'm out of school on summer break. The intention was to go down there, kind of hang out, get a job, so I don't get behind on my car note. Hang out with the fam, right? Get to know them
For a couple
because I didn't
months
grow up with them.
and
I
then
mean,
go
I
back
had
to
some
school.
siblings and stuff out there, and then go back to school,
Hmm.
right? I got down there, again, young and dumb. There was a young lady I was dating back in Mississippi, kind of off and on. Her and I was kind of getting things. I thought
Back
back on the
on.
track,
Hmm.
and we started talking about, man, how awesome life would be maybe if we lived in Miami. So she said that she would come if I stayed.
Hmm.
I talked to my father about whether or not I could live there with them because I never lived with them before, and I guess he probably talked it over with his wife, and they
Hmm.
decided that they would let me stay.
Hmm.
So that's how I ended up
Staying there.
staying there in
But
Miami.
initially, when you planned to leave, it was just kind of like 2 months for the summer. I'm
Man,
here, make my
and
money, go back to
it
Mississippi.
was it was so crazy because
About how old were you?
no, I mean I was like 19 years old.
Okay.
So I told my mom, I'm like, I must have told her like earlier in that week, hey, this weekend I'm gonna go to Miami. And my mom just didn't believe me.
Cause like, who just gonna pack up and go to Miami?
She just didn't
Like,
believe me.
who does that?
Who does that? So that day I said I was gonna go, right? I went outside, started my car. I had it warming up. I'm throwing baskets of clothes. Like I didn't even have
They
luggage
ain't even got no luggage.
because we
No, you
just
ain't got
didn't
no
travel
business
like
going
that. So
nowhere.
I'm just putting my clothes in the trunk of the car. And I remember my mom like, you know, boy, like what you doing? Like where you going? Mom, remember I told you I was going to Miami
Gone to
this
November.
weekend, man. And my mom kind of gave me a hard time about it. Like she did not, want me to go. And I went, man.
You went. Now, how long was it? You left that summer at 19. How long was it before you went back to Mississippi?
I want to say, it was maybe 2 years,
Before you went back.
if not longer, maybe
Left
so.
for the summer
And then go back.
and then go back. So now you say that, you feel like you grew up in Miami,
Absolutely.
right? What would you say is, kind of give us a couple of those defining moments as growing up? I mean, you're 19, single, in a on again, off again type of relationship. You guys are deciding to start a life, I guess, in Miami. Is why you
So,
decided to stay there.
so the girl never made it at all.
Okay.
Right. So here's something I need.
Thank you, girl.
I need my young fellas to understand, right? And not even just the fellas, like we make life-changing decisions with people that
Are temporary.
are temporary, right? I made a life-changing decision based upon a temporary relationship
And it was life changing not only for you, but for everybody involved.
for my family
For
as
your
well.
family as well,
And
yeah.
at that time, I never even processed or thought about how my family you
Your
know, would
mom and
feel
your
about my
sister.
mom and my sister,
Right.
you know, would feel about me moving to Miami. I just, hey, I'm in Miami now.
Right.
And it wasn't that I didn't care. Had they told me that, I later realized that my family did not approve of me leaving and going to Miami
Permanently.
permanently. But at the time, like, I just didn't understand that they did
They
not
couldn't
themselves
communicate
voice
that.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so defining moments, well, there was a few. And I would say that a large part of this is probably due to, who I'm living with now.
Okay.
Because, moms are very nurturing,
Mhm.
very protective,
Some of us,
Yeah,
some of us ain't so much.
well, you definitely are, right? But moms are going to kind of keep you from busting your head
We
open,
try.
right?
We try.
Fathers, on the other hand, is like, hey, this guy
Bust
got
it
to
down
bust
to
his
the white
head. You
meat.
know what
You
I'm
got to
saying?
learn. I'm
He
a little
got to
bit of
learn.
both. Listen, I'm a little bit of both of those though. Like I'm gonna tell you a couple times, but after that, hey, you gotta learn.
Okay.
You're gonna try to save them every single time. As a parent, you're gonna try to save your kids every single time. At some point, I'm like, oh, he gonna learn
Wait a
today.
minute. When you say you will try to save them,
You try to,
me in particular?
Tremaine, yes, you try to save your kids. Like,
That's crazy.
no, Tremaine, do not do that.
Anyway,
We're not gonna do that
we're
right
not
now.
going to do this
We're
right
back to
now.
your story. You know what? We're gonna do another episode on parenting because this story has to be told. You will save your children every time. I'm gonna let them learn the hard way. I'm gonna let them get it how they live. I'm gonna just be honest. But go ahead. Defining moment
Anyway,
when
so
the first defining moment.
well, I think it's just realizing that I'm living with my dad
It's a
now.
whole different world now.
It's a whole different world now. And not that he wasn't supportive, he just supported differently. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, he would tell me what to do, but like more in a advice type of way. Like,
Right.
well, son, this is what I think you should do. It wasn't
This
like
is
you
what
got
you
to do
need to
this.
do.
Like, my
Right.
mom would have probably made me do it and then saved me had I not done it.
Right.
Right? My dad, on the other hand, was not going to make me do it. He was going to tell me what to do. And if I decided to not do it, then I had to deal with those consequences of not doing it, like for
Yeah.
real. So I think the defining moment was like, when I realized that, I'm in a new place and like I got to grow up.
Cause is it almost kind of like you didn't like your mom would have been your safety net, but like dad was not that safety net. So it was kind of like you really and truly had to figure it out.
I really, I truly had to figure it. And again, and not that, and not that he wasn't there to
Not
help,
yeah.
but he would advise. If I did not take the advice, I had to deal with the consequences. Well,
Right.
well, son, I told you so. Hey,
Nah, this
you
is
got
the
to fix
result.
that. And he
Yeah.
go on, what I'm saying, doing this thing with his
And now
life.
you trying to fix it.
Yes, man. Look, I'll tell you a story, and this is, kind of, So again, I mean, I didn't grow up with my father, right? So I
Right.
didn't live with him until I was
So
19.
so let's kind of break it down a little bit. So you knew who he was, obviously, and he and his family were living in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So you decided to go and live with him, get to know your siblings
Live with
in
them, yeah.
Miami, live with them and get to know your siblings. But you did not have the experience of ever living with them before or growing up with them. How long had your dad been in Miami at the time when you went down there?
I mean, as long as I've known, like, he lived in
Got you.
Miami.
Got you.
So I
Okay.
mean, but that's actually a good question. I'm at some point I'd imagine they probably when he created me, I'm sure they lived in Mississippi,
Right.
right? But when I, you know,
Right. When you got to know him and
yeah,
stuff,
I think
he'd
that they
already
always,
been living in
yeah,
Miami.
because
Okay.
I did visit them in, I want to say maybe in '95. I went down and kind of hung out for like 2 weeks or something like
In
that
Miami.
in Miami.
Okay.
But but my ever living with them, like for real, like I done took my clothes out the suitcase and put them
in the
the
in the
drawers
drawers was
was
when you went out in 2000.
yeah,
Well,
19. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's probably like 2000, like maybe the
yeah,
summer or something like that, or 2000, maybe 2001.
2001. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so you decide to
but I mean, but that right there was a defining moment. I
just kind of
also,
realizing that you now have to grow up.
and the other thing, when I was 21, I had my first son, and I'll never forget finding out that I was about to be a parent. You know, this young lady, Mr. Cycle, I'm hanging out with. She's a little nervous.
Talking about hanging out with. Okay, then
I was hanging out with her.
y'all were y'all dating? Y'all
No.
was hanging out.
Well, and you know what? And that's a whole nother story. And that right there was was a very valuable lesson as well. In my mind, we were not dating because there hadn't been a verbal commitment. Okay.
But there had been a physical
But there
commitment.
had been a physical commitment
Right.
that I didn't process it as a commitment at the time,
Right.
but later kind of learned that, you know,
That's kind of
that's
how
kind of
women process it.
absolutely, and
Gotcha.
how I should have been processing it myself. So anyway, no, but we weren't dating at the moment. We were hanging out, and when we realized that she was pregnant, you know, I never forget. I'm standing by my car. We had just left Publix buying a pregnancy test. She goes in, does her business on the stick. I'm just sitting out by the car, and in my mind, like I already know that the test is gonna be negative. Okay, like there's no way that this young lady um, is pregnant,
Cause y'all
and
just been hanging out.
we just been hanging out. And she comes out the house, you know, she's waving the stick, crying like, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, I'm processing that now. Her mom is sitting on the porch, and the first thing she says was that we're gonna put that nigga on child support.
Off rip.
Off rip. So
Don't even really know you.
I'm
Like
processing
you trying to figure
she's
out,
pregnant
and you already on child support.
and I'm already on child support, and I'm like,
Woo.
dang, like this is so much, so
And
fast.
you're how old? 21.
So I'm probably 20 at that time.
At that time, you're probably 20.
Yep, I'm 20 at that time, and yeah, man, like that was another defining moment because
Change your life.
changed my life because now I have to deal with that and the whole child support thing. One of my dreams growing up was to always have my children in the same household with me because I'd grown up without my father and without, you know, essentially I guess my other family, right? And I didn't want to repeat that same
Cycle.
that same cycle. So now I'm dealing with so much because I'm about to have a baby with someone I'm not even dating, and on top of that, you know, I'm about to be on child support too. Like, man, this is a whole lot to process. That was definitely
A defining
a
moment.
defining moment. Like, yo, I, I gotta switch gears and figure this out.
I can see that. So I know I think that that's a good topic. I think that we should, just kind of go into that more. But just kind of overall, there in Miami, of course, today you have 3 kids. So the first defining moment was your first son, Malik, who just turned 20. You're hanging out with his mom. She's pregnant. She has a child. You guys are obviously not together like that, but then he's here. He has to be taken care of. How was that process? I mean, all the kids have lived with us since we've been married. How did you go about like getting custody? You said you always wanted to have your kids in one household. For a lot of men, that's their dream, but they don't know how to facilitate that. You know what I'm saying? Like, how were you able to get that done? I guess like not once, but twice.
So that's actually a great question because I think that the assumption is always if children are living with their father, then something had to be wrong with
The
their
mother,
mom, right?
right?
And that's not always the case. Neither does it have to be the case. I would say that I was just very diligent and very
Mm-hmm.
consistent.
Mm-hmm.
There was a way that I wanted things to be, and I just really fought for it, right?
Gotcha.
So the main thing for me at that moment was, okay, though mom and I may not be together, and we tried to, I mean, we tried to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in both our defense, I mean, we're just
Young.
young and dumb kids,
Right.
right? I mean, she was a lot younger than me at the time, right? So if I was 20, she may have been 18 years old,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I never even remember asking the girl how old she was, even.
Right.
I mean, I think that it has only hit me recently, like maybe within the past few years, that there's a significant,
Age difference.
what I would say was a significant age difference
Right.
anyway.
Right.
But we tried to make it work. It didn't work. And unfortunately, like most relationships where there's kids involved that don't work, now there's that drama,
Drama.
where, one or both parents is trying to, flex and
Control the other
control
parent with the
the,
child. Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
that is that is what I dealt with. And I think that mom, right, the
Mm-hmm.
one that was like, we about to put him on child support,
Mm-hmm.
was definitely a contributing factor towards the control, the manipulation,
I mean, because,
and the drama.
she was super young. So, of course, that was probably her support system, her mom. So,
She definitely
just kind
was.
of listening and, being confused and not knowing what to do. So, Malik is here. You're going through custody, kind of back and forth stuff.
So how did I do it though? Is what you asked me, right? How did I do it? I fought for what I believed in,
Mm-hmm.
and I made a promise to myself. And honestly, I need more men to make this promise to themselves and to their children, whether you have them now or not, right?
Right.
I made a promise to myself and to my children before I had them that I was going to be in their
That
lives.
you will fight to be in their lives.
Yep. And in my mind, if I was not present, there was going to be a track record,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
when, if I wasn't in their lives, and you know how it always happened, the kids are pissed off at dad. You wasn't there,
Where
you
were you?
deadbeat.
Didn't
Where were
fight
you?
for
You didn't
me.
fight for me. So I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? They will never say that.
Right.
I'm gonna have a box
Paperwork.
of paperwork.
We still got that paperwork, y'all.
If I'm not there and they come looking for me with that hostility, yo, here's the box. Hey, read that, look through that stuff. Give me a
Uh,
call in a couple of days when you're ready to talk.
right.
Okay? And at the moment when I was going through it, I realized that that promise that I made, I was about to have to keep it now.
Right.
Right? So I'm not familiar with the courts. I wish I can say that, my family supported me on this, but nobody in my family.
Well, because it is not popular to see a
Well,
father fight for custody. Like, I mean, in our communities, nobody knows what that looks like.
I mean, whether it's popular or not, man, like, my family had, like, my parents, they knew what I was battling
They
against.
did. Well, maybe they didn't know how to support because it was not a popular thing.
Showing up is the lowest form of support.
Right.
Now, and I'm not mad today by no means. And my mom was available, right? Like I could
Hmm.
always call her.
But she was in Mississippi
Yep,
and
she
you
was in
were
Mississippi.
in Miami.
She would pray for me. She would talk me off the ledge over the phone, right? She
Right.
was, she was my life coach at the time. Hey, mom, you
Right.
wouldn't believe they doing this, man. I'm about to run through here. I'm about to mess these people up, mom. Like they got my kid, and she, no, sweetheart, you can't do it. Let's pray about it. I need you to calm down. Da 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 da. My mom really,
She
she really
got you through
saved me,
that.
right? My dad probably, what he probably thought, and we never had this conversation, but he probably thought I told him.
Mm.
So now I'm gonna let
So
him.
now I'm gonna let you figure it
So
out.
now I'm gonna let you figure it out.
Deal with the consequences.
That could have been his approach, but
That
he
could
never showed up
sound about right.
to court with me ever. You know what I'm saying? Which was a really tough time in my life because I don't know anything about the courts. I hate now that somebody else has more of more of a choice in what my family dynamic now is about to look like
Right.
outside of me. And it was hard. So I won't lie, fellas, and say that it's a cakewalk. It's probably easier today than what it was 20 years ago. From what I understand, a lot of stuff had
Has
changed
changed.
and was in the process of changing even when I was going through it. I lost the first, few court battles. I was on child support for a moment, but I kept record. Everything
Right.
that I did it with the idea in mind that one day I may have to defend my actions in court.
So I remember very early when we got married, of course, because my mindset is a little different, right? I am from Miami. Um so I am not as open to, you know what I'm saying, like being friends with your baby mama. Like that's just not what I'm finna do. Okay? Because why? I'm very I was very anti miss me with all that. Like the kids are here, they're safe, they're clean. Like if they going over there, they can go. But I personally do not need to have a relationship with these young ladies. And I can remember you always telling me that no matter what happens, we always need to be right if it comes down to going to court.
Mm.
So that was something that really and truly always stuck with me, to just kind of make me realize that it's not about me and my feelings, but what's best for the children. And so, I had to play nice, right? And I wasn't playing. Like, I just really had to change my mindset, because if it came down to it, I personally did not want to be a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't want anybody to be able to come back and say, I did this or I said that, or, whatever the case may be. And I think that has definitely worked to your benefit, to our benefit, and to the children's benefit. Like nobody could ever, bring up anything in court that we did. But that was a great mentality to have. And a lot of people don't have that mentality when they're going through these types of things. Like they're ruling more with emotions, which is where I was, than, logic. So I guess my question is, you were still young, even kind of going through that stuff. Like, what made you mature enough to understand that, wait a minute, like, I really have to take a step back and deal with this a little bit different than, you know, what I normally would, or what someone else would. Like, that took a very high level of emotional maturity to be able to handle that. So what do you attribute that to?
I told a guy the other day that I met that had gone through something similar, just kind of growing up with, without a dad, siblings, a lot of other siblings that, his father had. And I can hear the appreciation, that he had, the joy, the proudness in his voice,
Mhm.
because he himself had became a father, and his son was 18 months, right?
Mhm.
But I could also hear the pain that he had of growing up without his dad.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna be honest, man, like, and though he wasn't crying,
Mhm.
I could hear the pain.
Mhm.
And here's a note to the fathers that are out there right now that have children that aren't, that aren't doing their duty. Man, like, you're doing, your children a huge disservice, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even a disservice like just for that moment. This is a
Into adulthood.
yes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is a life
Yeah.
kind of life disservice,
Yeah.
because I don't know if I've ever met anybody that was like, yo, I didn't grow up with my dad, and
I got over it. I'm
it's
good.
all good.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
no,
No.
nothing. I mean, even when you say, yo, like, I don't want to have nothing to do with them, like, that in itself is
Is
like,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's still pain, right? A
It
little
nothing
bit.
fills that void though.
So I think I realized that now, and I didn't grow up, sour that my dad wasn't there or nothing like that. Like there was no none of that real animosity because he had never
I
been there
mean,
really.
but
So it's
we
kind of
know that there wasn't because you went to live with
yeah.
him.
So it was for me. It was kind of like a I can't miss kind of what I never had type
Mhm.
of deal. But I knew that my father was not in my life, and like I said, I mean, just making that promise earlier on. Also, I think that hearing my mom complain about men all the time, like so,
Right.
I can remember hearing my mom say that men ain't ish,
Nothing.
right? I
Right.
don't know if we curse on this podcast or not.
I might every now and
I
then
mean, because we
because
do sometimes like
I do
curse
in
in
real
real
life.
life.
I'm sorry,
You
but
know,
I mean we've been keeping
we're
it
Christian
PG
good folks though,
13,
okay? But we do in real life.
but
So
God's still working on me. So
so I can remember hearing my mom say that, and this was
that was
my
that was your
cousin,
mama before
my
church.
cousin mama, my cousin mama said that niggas wasn't shit,
Mhm.
and I can remember her
You can hear that
saying this,
echoing.
and
Could you hear it in her voice saying it?
I could hear the pain
Yeah.
and the way I processed it, and though I didn't consider myself as a nigga,
Mhm.
right? I understood that what she was saying was that black men wasn't
Right.
wasn't shit. So I just in my mind I had to be everything that I didn't have personally and everything that I feel like my
Your
mom didn't
mom
have
didn't
either.
have.
Right.
Wow.
So when it came time for me to assume that role, man, like failing just wasn't an option.
Right.
So I think that for me, like that was it. Like I understood that by not being there, I would do my children
A
a huge
disservice.
disservice and their mothers as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because now I'm leaving them to have to raise them and figure out, everything
Everything.
by themselves.
Kind of
The
just
women
putting
that be like
them.
on Father's Day, like I'm a dad too.
But I mean, I think that you just realized that you would be putting them in a position that your mom was in, and you saw that pain and that struggle, and you
Yeah,
didn't want to do that.
yeah.
So we're gonna fast forward a little bit. So Malik is born, and then a couple years later, you have Tremaya. She has a different mom than
Malik was
Malik.
born in '01,
Tremaya was born in
'03.
Yep. Tremaya was born in 2003. So you
So here's
didn't
what's
learn your
crazy,
lesson the
man.
first
Look,
time.
I went to Miami, guys. I don't know if the palm trees,
He did
the
not learn his
the
lesson,
water,
is
or
what it is,
what, but I
right?
swear there was two kids waiting on me, man.
I told him them girls from Miami ain't what you're looking for, baby.
Right. So we're fast forwarding. Shemaya is
So
'03.
Tremaya is born in '03. You really and truly kind of go through a similar situation.
It
No,
was
time out. You're off on your dates. I'm like, ain't no way. Malik was born in 2003. Tremaya was born in 2005.
what did I say?
You said Malik was born in '01. No, Malik was born in 2003.
That's right.
And in 2005
Shemaya was
comes
born.
Tremaya.
Yeah,
Because when I met you, it
I
was,
appreciate that.
it was the first introduction that we had was probably late 2006,
Hmm.
early 2007, because Tremaya was like an infant. I said
Hmm.
this, like, I can remember kind of talking to you for a few minutes, and in those few minutes, I knew that you had two kids, and one of them was like a baby. And again, it's the Miami in me that's like, I'm not finna fool with him because he's still dealing with his baby mama, basically, right? Because she was still, I mean, I don't even think she was 18 months yet. Because she was born in November 2005. So we met in November, like December ish. The first time we ever encountered each other
Hmm.
was probably like December, November ish, 2006.
Okay.
And then, just kind of seeing each other. And I don't think we really kind of started hanging out until maybe like around March, April-ish.
Right.
And then we officially started dating in May 2007, and then we got married. But
Okay, historian with the timeline.
got the timeline. That girl dope,
Okay,
right?
that's what I'm talking
Cause
about.
you have no idea. Cause you
Keep
said your
up.
son was born in 2001. I'm
Man, now
like,
you know
that's
that was
not
just an
right.
oversight, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
okay. Anyway,
okay.
let me get you
I
together by
appreciate
my
it.
kids. Okay. So, Tremaya is born in 2005. You go through a similar custody situation with her, or just kind of like a similar situation. And I was there. I was more so present at the time. I think I came in kind of like on the tail end of finalizing court documents with Malik.
So, similar, I wouldn't necessarily say similar, right? It was court, yes, but
It was child support, yes,
yes,
immediately.
yes, but the stuff I went through with
But well,
just
I'm saying
was,
similar,
it was night and
not
day.
so I'm not saying in situation and circumstances and like fighting like physically grabbing him from daycare and running, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Not that stuff, but I'm just saying, you and
Pause. I was that dad.
no, yeah, for real.
Okay,
That's what I'm
like
saying. I think
when
that's
I
a whole
say
nother. I think that we should do a whole
when I
nother one
say there
just
was going to be
on
a fight,
situations.
there was going to be a fight. Like there was no way
Yes.
in the
Call the
world
police,
that I was about
and
to
the
lay
police have
down.
no. This is a civil matter, officer. Goodbye.
There's no way I was going to lay down and not be in my kid's life and there not be
Give me some on
a
that.
doggone
Give me
fight.
some.
I will say that too many guys today
Go
are laying
down
down
without a fight.
without a fight. And what I don't understand is, it's like if you would fight for your car or for worldly possessions, like, because a lot of guys like to be hard, you know what I mean? Like, you ain't about to just come and take, my money,
You
my
ain't
car,
gonna
my
rob
jewelry.
me and
You
all
ain't just
that kind
gonna,
of
you know what
stuff.
I'm saying? Like, absolutely. But you would allow circumstances to
To
keep
rob
you,
you of your kids.
like,
Wow.
there ain't nothing hard about that to me. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Like, if you walk in the face of the earth and you have seeds out here, you have children out here, and you're not in their lives, you're not communicating with them.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not, helping them become better than you were. Like, you are not hard. I mean, at all.
So
You get no
I don't
respect.
I don't know, of course, as much as Tremaine about this, and you guys can definitely hit him up, leave a message if y'all have questions. But I know that there is a difference between child support court and family court.
Right.
So if you're getting stuck in that process, like you need to transition from child support court to family court. That's what I do know.
Absolutely.
So I was fast forwarding a little bit, right? You didn't learn your lesson because you ran the same play back. You know what I'm saying? You're hanging out with this chick that was supposed to not be able to get pregnant because that's what the doctor said. So y'all hanging out, y'all dating or whatever, and then bam, here's Tremaya. Um, so now here you are, a young father still fighting for custody of Malik, right? I mean, still being very active in his life, but still kind of going through that process of fighting for custody. Now you have another young lady that's about to have another child. You guys are more so in a relationship, right? That doesn't. I guess y'all was together for a little while. That was not the best circumstances for either of you guys. So now you're in a situation where you're no longer together. And again, that principle of having your family together kicks in and you fight for custody of Tremaya. Different circumstances, of course.
And let me just say this, though. Fighting for custody was the process.
Mm-hmm.
It was not. It was not necessarily the goal. if that makes sense.
So talk about that because
So
I know what the goal was, but talk about why it was so important for you to have.
so the goal was to simply put my children in a position where they were able to go and come
As they please.
as they please, because
You
I
did
felt
not
like
want to be the parent that was like, you
keeping
didn't.
them away,
Yes,
using, being in my feelings and not letting
right.
my children. I just feel like it is their natural birthright. So even for the moms that are out there right
Yeah,
now that are like, playing that game where you're not letting your child talk to their dad or go see him and, just kind of doing that thing. Man, like you're doing your child more of a disservice,
right,
you know what I'm saying, than anything else. Like they have to grow up, not being in their father's lives and, just not having that ability to, go and come and just be able to enjoy their dad. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying at all that you're to blame, right, for the situation being what it is per se, because I think that both parties kind of share
right,
in the creation and also in the fallout,
right,
right, of the relationship. But what I am saying though is that the children should not have to pay for that at all, and unless there is some imminent danger that the child may face being
right.
with the other parent,
Parent,
then in my opinion, like they should be able to go and come
right. Which
freely.
has really and truly been the case, like for us. So even though Malik and Tremaya have lived with us since we've been together, they've always had the ability to come and go as they please. You know,
Well, I don't know if I would say that per se. I think that, I mean, just being honest, because here's the other thing too. I don't feel like, in even this case that we're speaking on right now, that I won. You understand what I'm
I don't
saying?
think
Like,
nobody wins when it's, you know what I'm saying,
nobody,
kids involved like that. I don't think nobody wins.
nobody
You
wins
know, you just
really.
hope to put your kids in the best situation overall.
So them being able to go and come as freely as I would have hoped still just has not been the
Well,
outcome.
okay. So there's situations and circumstances that, you know what I'm saying, affect that. But I guess what I'm saying is that we were never the cause of them not being able to go or participate. You know, it was never like, nah, you can't go over there type of thing.
So check this out, and this right here is a life lesson though. Okay. And I understand exactly what you're saying. Like we haven't prevented them
That's what
from
I'm
going.
saying.
Like we haven't
The door,
allowed our
we
feelings
kept the door open.
to get in the
Yes,
way,
that's what
right?
I'm
I get
saying.
that. But what I'm saying is that the way that life unfolds, what I'm saying, it still makes it a little bit more difficult because of course
Absolutely.
now we live, I don't know, maybe 1,000
So
miles away
that
from.
okay, I'm just saying
No, I
that
understand what you're saying. I'm just saying this
in
for the
general,
listeners,
okay,
right? For the people
it doesn't
that are
always
listening,
work as easy, as
as
seamless.
pretty
Yes, yes,
as we
yes.
would like it to in my mind, I wanted them to be able to go and come as they please.
Right,
But, obviously, you kind of begin to move people, go in different, different places and stuff. And that in itself makes it difficult because, of
right.
course,
Logistics,
yeah,
yeah.
like we're living here, they're living there. But as much as we can, I've always been open to it. So
Right,
having custody for me was really more of a move to where nobody else can tell me when I can and can't see my kids
right.
based upon a conversation or a
Feelings,
thing. Yeah.
right.
Like I've had the police show up to my house, on some, oh, he about to take my baby and be around this girl and this and that. Like police like go in there and get my kid. And now like I'm having to give my son to
Right,
a complete stranger because she thinks I'm about to go and do X, Y, and Z. Like to me, like
right,
that was crazy.
right.
So and at that moment, I felt like, yo, I need to have custody so we can prevent this
Eliminate that kind of
from
stuff.
happening. And because I always thought about our actions being
How they're viewed in the court.
how to view it in the court, that is what really gave me the advantage, right? So being consistent, going to court, always thinking, can I defend my actions? Right, is what really helped me get custody of Malik. So I do have. I did win full custody of Malik. And again, and nothing, no hate against, his mom. Like, no, she's not the worst person in the world. She was young and dumb, dealing with things, and in
Right.
my opinion, she just really comes
I mean, I
from
think
a
that
bad
in the
family.
circumstances, it was just kind of the best case scenario for Malik.
Yeah, you know. Um, but I just like to, just kind of make that
Right.
clear. Like, I'm an older, more mature guy myself today.
Today,
So
right.
I even process and look at things that have happened in the past,
Right.
differently. So not to, take shots at nobody. We were young, we were dumb, just, doing the best that we knew what to
In the
do.
moment.
And
Absolutely.
there was influences there that they probably didn't do a great job in controlling.
In managing.
Right. For me, there was influences as well, but it was the influence of not having. It was hearing my mom say,
Right. Niggas ain't
niggas want
shit.
nothing. It
Yeah.
was, what I'm saying, like it was that. So I had to be who I had to be in order to be there for my kids.
So let me just say this. Shout out to you for being that guy. I think that was one of the things that for me was attractive, not the fact that he had kids, but the fact that, you fought to be present in your children's lives was a big deal to me, So, whereas, obviously I didn't have any kids when we met, my family was kind of like, this man got two kids. Like, what are you doing? But for me, it takes a lot of character, integrity, and it just takes a man. And we were young still, at that time, but you were very mature and firm in your stance with your children. And so I could only imagine, if we were married and we had children, I'm saying, like, you would have that same fight and that same passion. So thank you for, honoring your commitment to yourself to fight to the best of your ability to have your family in one place.
I
Right.
appreciate it.
That's been phenomenal.
Thank you.
So fast forward a little bit again, right? So now we're married, right? New couple, two kids. We're both working, right? At this point, we're still working at the hospital. That's where we met. Um, Tell me about, how you felt in those moments. Like, new husband, that was a new role for you. Like, you were at this point kind of used to being a dad, but husband was a new role for you. So now you have this provide, protect thing, not only for your children, but also a wife, right? So you're working. A lot has happened in Miami. You've been laid off a couple times. We're at this job. Um, Tell me how you're feeling in these times, and I guess ultimately, like, what leads to your transition into entrepreneurship, right? Because M5 is motivated, financially independent, victorious entrepreneurs. So, what led you to that transition into entrepreneurship around that time?
So let me just say that, kind of to answer the first question, how did I feel
Yes.
entering this new role of being a
Yes.
husband? And I've never said this before.
I'm almost
No,
afraid.
no, 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 no. For real, but just hearing you ask me that now, I realized something, man. Like, I was built for this.
Oh my
No, for
God.
real. You know what I mean? Like,
Look at
stepping
you.
stepping into that role was easy.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
It was,
child.
girl, you crazy.
Yeah,
It was
I'm
easy
sorry.
though because I felt like I understood what my role as a man, as a provider, was.
You were very clear on that.
I was very clear on that.
Got you.
I mean, at this point, I've made some mistakes. I've dealt with a lot. You know, I have the experiences, from my mom and her husband growing up. You know, though my grandparents were together up until they died, my granddad was, just not the model, husband. Now, when I met him, of course, he was old and cool as I don't know
Right.
what,
Wasn't they
I
all?
used to hang out, with my granddad, by the tractors and stuff like that, watching him sip on his beer and just,
But we done heard
you
them
know,
stories about y'all granddad.
I done heard the story about, yeah, man, like, hey, my granddad was a hellraiser. So I had all of these experiences leading up to that moment that have taught me like how to be a husband. And not that I'm going to say that I was just, the best at it, because I always feel like we can be better, right? But I do feel like my experiences in the past built me for my
Future.
experiences in the future. You know what I'm saying? Like being a husband, I just knew who I had to be. And I think that a part of that is what allowed it or made it easy for me to transition into entrepreneurship too. So I believe there's three things, and I'm not saying limited to three things, but I think that there's three things that as a man we have to be able to do. Okay, you have to be able to protect your family. Okay, at all costs, like before any harm comes to any member of my family, it has to come to me first. Okay, I just believe that's it. I mean, if something ever happened to you while I was present and I did nothing about it, then I might as well be dead too, because I could not live with that, knowing that I should have or could have done something. Like that's just not something you can bounce back from, right? So you got to be able to. You have to be able to protect your family. You also have to be able to provide for your family. And this is where the entrepreneurial piece kind of comes into play. Because as you mentioned, I had been laid off in the past, right? So, I had what I thought were, good jobs,
Right.
and the first time I ever got laid off, I'm a dad, I leave from work on a Friday, enjoying my 2 day weekend. So I'm doing that work five, enjoy two, okay?
Living for the
So
weekend.
I'm living for the weekend, right? I enjoy my Saturday, Sunday, go back to work Monday, and I feel good about it. Like this job I had, I had a little badge. I had to scan in to the gate to park, then I had to scan to get inside. So I feel like I got a good job, just based
That
upon
job.
how I get to the,
Scan in, scan
scan in
out.
and stuff like that, right? Like this is high level over here, boy. Um, and when I went back to work that following Monday, the whole department, like the computers, the desks were like all saran wrap, like it was shut down. They laid us off. So while I'm enjoying my 2 day weekend,
They wrapping up your
somebody else
station.
is in the department wrapping us up.
Right.
And of course, I had no idea that this was coming. So I'm laid off, and it affects my ability to provide
Right.
for my family,
For your family.
right? So I learned a lesson then. It was slow, right? It was like a little drip. I realized at that moment that I don't have control over my income. And that was a problem. But I did what anybody else would do at the moment, what most people do. I
Find
went and
another job.
I found me another job.
Right.
I have a kid. I got to take care of him, right? So I found another job, and I probably work a few jobs in between being laid off and the time I started working at the hospital. But I'm working at the hospital now again, another good job. I'm wearing the scrubs. I got the badge on, right? I feel good, guys. You
Something
know,
about that badge make you feel good,
well,
huh?
the badge and now the
And you
scrubs
got
too.
scrubs.
I'm
Wow.
walking around in the scrubs, feeling,
I
feeling
remember them green
official,
scrubs.
as the old people used to say. I felt official like a whistle, baby. You know what I mean? And I work in this county job. My wife and I are both now working this job, and I'll never forget the CEO, Carlos Magoya, I think his
Yep.
name, sent out an email saying that the hospital was going through some financially turbulent
Yep.
times. Like, who figured that? I'm going through hard times financially,
How is the county hospital
and the
going through hard
hospital that I'm
times?
working for is going through some hard times too. And they put out a bulletin and they may have to lay off, like, you know, X a number of people. Like, it was maybe a couple thousand people or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
And of course, if you were new with less seniority, you were kind of on
Yep.
the chopping
You
block a
ain't
little
had no
bit.
tenure.
So I'm probably like, 5 years in or something like that at the time. I got no seniority at all,
Yep.
amongst, my
Everybody else
my
in that
peers,
pool, right?
yeah. So I'm just knowing that they're about to lay me off. And at that moment I was kind of facing that again, like their hard times is threatening my ability now to provide for my
Yep.
family. I don't want nobody else to have more control over my income than I do. So that is what ultimately led me
Open
to
that door for you.
entrepreneurship. Absolutely. Just not want nobody else to have more control over my ability to provide for my family. So I said there's three things, right?
Yes.
Protect, provide. The third thing is guide, right? You have to be able to, guide your family. Now, I understand that not every guy is a visionary,
Mhm.
right? Maybe
I was
not
gonna talk about that.
maybe not every guy knows where they want their family to be, but I'm gonna be honest, like if you have a family, you
You
gotta know.
should. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta know. It's like again, and I'm referencing a car, but we can reference a video game or an anatomy, right? If there is something that you want to do, you're gonna figure it out, right?
Yep.
If there's something you want to drive, if you want to drive your car, if you want to play the video games, because I know a lot of guys, a lot of people in the video game. You figure out the joysticks, right? The controls. You learn the moves, right? I mean, I had a guy tell me the other day, when I was talking to him about doing something he never done before, his excuse for not trying it is that he never done it before, and I was like, bruh, like the first time you had sex, has you done it before?
Figured
Nope.
it out.
But you figured it out, didn't it? Right? And
Yep.
it probably didn't go as smooth as you thought it was going to go in the beginning,
Right.
but you pressed
You kept
forward,
going.
right? So let's not act like we don't know how to,
Right.
so I will say that if you have a family, like you have to be able to, guide your family. And not that you have to be the sole visionary. Like if you marry someone that is a visionary as well,
Right.
that's perfect, but you still got to play your
Somebody
part
has to.
in,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, leading towards, whatever that destination is. So protecting, providing, and
And
guiding are the
guiding.
three things that I feel like, every man, must do for their family. And the providing and the protecting part becomes threatened when, you know,
You can't guide.
when no, when your job is not your own,
Got you.
right? Because if that manager comes in a day and says, "Hey, I don't need you no more," you got to go home and tell your family, like, my ability to provide the income, which put
Right.
foods on the table, which keeps
And
the
gives
lights
us the
on,
protection.
is in jeopardy now. And I just didn't want that no more.
This has really been good because I'm learning stuff also. Have a couple more questions and then we're gonna wrap it up. One of the things that I want you to talk about is what has been one of the most challenging things that you've ever done.
One of the most challenging things I've ever done, I would definitely have to say fighting for, um, and I'm not even going to say fighting for custody. I'm going to say fighting to be present.
I you I knew you was gonna say that. Yeah.
I would say fighting to be present in
Right.
the lives of my children the way I, envision being present to look like.
Mhm.
And I would say next to that, being an entrepreneur,
Okay.
right? Because the challenges are very similar still.
Mm-hmm.
So fighting to be present, like, you're having to prove yourself to other people still.
All the
Like
time,
I had to
right?
go to a court and be,
Right.
like this model, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because I got to gain approval now from
Right.
a
The
judge,
judge.
the jury and executioner, if you will. Being an entrepreneur, like you have to do the same thing, right? I mean, and I hear people say all the time, "Oh, I'm self-made." Well, the reality is that nobody that does anything great does it by
By
themselves, right?
themselves,
Like you
right?
have to, somebody has to be buying your product,
Right.
right, or paying for your service, right, or
Right.
something like that. Which means I'm still now having to do something that will be approved by
By
others to
other
make them
people.
want to,
Do
do
business with
business with
me.
me. And that has, being an entrepreneur is challenging, and it's almost like a never ending type of
Yes.
thing because stuff is always evolving. Like now
Yes.
we got the
Not
chat
only
GPT
stuff,
and
but
technology.
I think not only that stuff is always evolving, but I think as people, we're always evolving.
Absolutely.
So, as an entrepreneur, you have to constantly be self developing to get to the next level. You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure.
Because we are dependent upon other people. You know what I'm saying? Like in some form of fashion, like we are dependent upon other people's approval of us to either do business with us or buy our products or services. So we always have to be evolving. And sometimes that can be challenging because, change is, you know, a little difficult for a lot of people. So that was one thing. So the most challenging thing, right? Fighting to be present and then also being an entrepreneur. The other thing I wanted to ask you, and I have one more question after this, but I do want to know what has been the most rewarding thing that you've done, or what is the most rewarding thing, for you right now?
Well, I mean, I would have to say, you know, being present and being an entrepreneur, right?
Wow, that's interesting.
But let me say, this though, right? Just for clarity, because I could have said having a successful marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my marriage wouldn't be successful if I wasn't present,
Present,
right?
absolutely.
And if my ability to provide wasn't what it is, then I think that I would kind of look at the marriage a little different.
A little
And not
different.
that I wouldn't, that we still wouldn't have a great marriage, but I would just feel a little less than because I
Right.
cannot do the things that I feel like I need to do for my family. So I would say that those two things are the most rewarding because it falls within those three
But I
things that I
think
say
that
is very
that
important.
I think that that's so interesting though that in most things that we do, right? The things that challenge us the most, that push us the most, that make us the most uncomfortable, ultimately become the things that are the most rewarding.
Absolutely.
And just by you having, the same thing for both of those questions, like it's really a testament to that because, those things that push us the most make us grow the most. And that's kind of like what we look back on and see is like our defining moment, so that fight to be present, and that fight to be an entrepreneur, to me, like it makes sense why those are also the most rewarding things for you.
I will also say though that I feel like too that I'm still fighting those fights as well,
Absolutely.
right? Because as our kids get older, the involvement and as a parent, like you evolve,
Yeah.
right? So I have to be present in a different way now. So our oldest is 20,
Yeah.
our daughter is 17, will be
Yeah.
18 in November. Our youngest is 13 years old. So I have to be present differently,
Differently
for
for
each
each
of
of
them,
them.
you know what I'm saying? Because they're in a different place.
Yes.
I feel like also as an entrepreneur, and we're still fighting to get to that place. You said it
Right.
earlier, right? Like my goal ultimately would be to become a philanthropist, right? So
Right.
I gotta be able to amass enough wealth so I can
Give it away.
give back, right? But now let me just say too that being married is the most, I would say, joyful thing, if that's, if I'm using the right context.
I'm a joy.
Absolutely. I think that being married to the right person just makes a huge difference. There's an amount of peace that I really could not describe that I feel when my wife and I are close together, right? Like, when we're laying in bed, or not, or maybe not even just in bed, but just out and about, right? I mean, there's a peace there that I don't think I could find, that I know I couldn't find anywhere else. Like, I don't think there's anything else I could do that could bring me that same amount of peace, right? So, and without you, the first nor the third thing, right, whether it's being present or being an entrepreneur, would be, you know, possible in a way that it has been. And I know that you will play a very intricate role in us becoming philanthropists and giving back and stuff like that. So, shout out to you for having the courage and the guts, the nuts to be in a relationship with a guy that had two kids, two different women, young and dumb, against the advice of
Against
your
all odds.
family and probably everybody else. Like, nah, you
And yet
shouldn't,
here
you
we
shouldn't do
are.
that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yet,
Here we
here
are.
we are. So,
Again, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't think that God brought us together by happenstance. I think that there are, to be honest, I feel like we have done some amazing things. But I do feel like God has a lot more in store for us to do as a couple, um, to really build his kingdom, honestly. I feel like there's a lot more to do. My last question for you, my best friend, right? Um, as the visionary, right? Where do you see your family ultimately? Like, what is your legacy for M, the number five, right? So I'm gonna give a little background. M5 is an acronym that we use now, and of course, it stands for Motivated, Financially Independent, Victorious Entrepreneurs. But the original M5 was M and the number five, and it was our car dealership, M5 Automotive Group. And we did the M5 because, of course, our last name is McTiller, and there's five of us, right? It's a couple of us in heaven, but there's five of us here today. Um, and so I want to know from you, and the people want to know, what is your vision for M number five?
before I can even answer that, though, you just said something that there's a couple of us in heaven.
Hmm. It's a couple of little M5s in heaven. I threw you off with that one, huh?
Man, like, to anybody listening, you would
Well,
throw
I've had,
everybody off. Like, what does
well,
that mean?
so that means that when we first came up with M5, it was five of us, right? Tremaine, Felicia, Malik, Tremai, Makai. We've had some miscarriages.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of us in heaven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Man, that was a little deep, though. Okay. Like, I think that was a little. I think that was a little
I mean, like you,
too
I'm,
deep. But
I'm, I'm
okay.
in it. I
Okay, I
mean,
got you. I got you. But you can't say stuff like that
and
and
not
not
okay.
give some
Well, so there's the
context.
context. So there's the context, right?
Okay.
So
All right.
we've had a few miscarriages.
All right. We did. We had a son that we miscarried that we named Jackson, as a matter of fact. So, um, But okay, so your question was, what is my
Vision.
vision?
What would you like your legacy to be? My question is more so, what would you like your legacy to be?
Um, so in terms of what I want to be known for,
Mhm.
I want to be known for the guy that gave it all he had, that fought for everything that he believed in, that impacted his community along the way, right? I feel like there is no pleasure in amassing material things and wealth if you can't do anything for
Anybody else?
anybody else. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like for me, it's like I wouldn't take pleasure in bragging about the house that I've bought or the car that I drive if I couldn't do that same thing for somebody else, in my opinion. So,
Right.
my idea of success today is being able to do what I want, when I want, how I want, for whom I want without having to check my bank account. And it's the for whom that's really big because the whole idea is to be able to give back. What I would want for my family, I would want to create a business and a brand
Mhm.
that would ultimately set my family free,
Mhm.
but that would also allow them to set
Other
others
people
free,
free.
right? And what I mean when I say free, I mean, free from, financial bondage, free from, because I think a lot of people are still mentally enslaved, right? Like
Mhm.
we feel like
Absolutely.
there's only, so much we
Absolutely.
can do. Our thoughts are very much so controlled by our circumstances and the things that
Right.
we see directly in front of us, and oftentimes it enslaves us to a lifestyle, right?
Right.
um, I want my family to know that their only limitation lies between their two
There
ears,
is.
right?
Yes.
But if they can understand that they're only limited by limiting themselves, then maybe they can set other people free,
Free.
right?
That's
So,
deep.
though I may not be a philanthropist in the sense that, I can give a lot of resources in terms of money yet, right?
Mhm.
Working on it, but just not there yet.
Mhm.
I think that in terms of giving people hope and giving people, freedom
Yes.
for sure, I'm saying we can do that, right now. We are doing that
Absolutely.
right
We are
now.
doing that now.
Um, I need people to understand that you don't have to be captive, based upon your health,
Right.
right? We
Absolutely.
know that because you're a four-time cancer survivor.
Right.
I'm also on a health journey myself, right? And you guys are going to see that.
Yep.
So I'm gonna do this thing with Malik, called Malik Gets Fit, because he's into that, right?
Mhm.
So, we're going to kind of, allow him to journey, to share his journey of
Okay.
fitness,
Okay.
okay? But while also, dad getting in shape too, right?
It's
You
gonna be
know, I don't,
interesting.
I don't want people to be, enslaved based upon, you know, their current environment because
Right.
that often enslaves people,
Plays a major part.
plays
Absolutely.
a major part. Don't be enslaved based upon, who your parents were or were not.
Right.
Okay. Because at some point you got to realize that you have control over what tomorrow looks like.
Right.
You may not
Not
have had as
anybody
so much
else.
control over the past
Yep.
per se, but I definitely have control over the
The
future.
future.
Um, So, with that being said, ultimately, I would like to have a family of philanthropists. So, like when you think about, people that have made, you know, huge impacts,
Mhm.
in
Huge contributions to
huge
society.
contributions to
Yeah.
society, their children usually follow that with, other contributions, because
Right.
their parents open the door.
Right.
Um, and I hope I was able to answer that question, but ultimately, like that's what I would like, our family to do. Like I just don't want us to be limited. You know what I mean? Like having that control in me is really, really, really important. And not that again, entrepreneurship is easy, or the things that we want in life is easy, but understanding too that we have choices, right? So being an entrepreneur, being successful isn't easy, but being poor isn't easy either,
It is not.
right?
Okay.
So
Been there, done that. It's not.
you have to choose your hard, right?
Absolutely.
So I would want my family to choose the hard that will ultimately allow them to be free and allow them to set others free.
Wow. That was a mouthful.
Yeah, well,
This guy right here, um, my best friend, my husband, sweetheart, that was amazing. I'm sure that you dropped some nuggets out there for some dads. You definitely dropped some inspiration. You dropped some motivation. Hopefully people got to, you know, just kind of learn a little bit more about who you are. I know who you are. I love you. I thank you. Um, but this has been amazing, right? I look forward to all of that stuff that you just said, right? You are the visionary for our family. I am very confident in that. And I look forward to following your lead, but next to you, not behind you,
I
right?
appreciate that.
You taught me how to, not be behind you, but be beside you. And I definitely thank you for allowing me space to show up.
Well, let me ask you a question, right? And in kingdoms,
Hmm.
right? There's a king and there's a what?
A queen
Where do the queen sit?
next to the king,
Not behind him.
not behind him.
Absolutely.
Here I am.
She sits next to the king.
And here I am. Man, this has been amazing.
Hmm.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Um, man, I am really blown away. I think that I have the most amazing husband. I think that some of our teammates have the most amazing coach. I think our kids have the most amazing father. We thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. And we thank you guys, right? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if y'all have any questions, comments, concerns, um, drop them below, right? If you have questions, because he is starting a nonprofit called Dads on Duty, where his focus is going to be helping young men, right, develop into manhood, right? Really kind of teaching what that is. We didn't really talk about that a lot, but I know that that's something that he's super passionate about. And stick around because we're gonna have more information on that coming soon. And I'm proud of you, sweetheart.
Now, so let me just correct you. That's not the name of it, but we will disclose that information right at a later date. But if you are a man that believes in mentorship, that feel like you have something that you would love to share, with other, young men, I would definitely love to have a conversation with you, because
Absolutely.
ultimately what we would like to create is a network right across the country that allows um, young boys to tap in to mentors, right? Like I had a hard time. I mean, if it wasn't for Mr. Murphy, you
Mm-hmm.
know, man, I wouldn't have had a mentor nowhere else, right? And that's a huge gap in our community today,
Absolutely.
So anyway, but more about that coming. But I do want you guys to like this channel, subscribe to it, hit the bell, okay? Man, there's going to be so many dope episodes, right, that come, from this podcast, because ultimately the goal is to share with the community how we've been able to come together, and create a family blended
Yeah.
so well you can't tell,
Yeah.
while also being able to build an amazing, business that's impactful and life-changing to our community. So we're going to be
Absolutely.
sharing all that with you guys, right? This will be a podcast about family, about entrepreneurship, right?
Fitness,
Fitness, right?
finance,
Finance,
food, a little bit of
all,
food in there.
because my wife is a foodie, okay? Hey guys, look, thank y'all so much, man. Until we talk again.
Peace.
Peace.